welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Floors podcast, a podcast from Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. Welcome back to our Andor special editions, today focusing on Arc 3, Episode 7, 8, and 9, Messenger. Who are you? Welcome to the Rebellion.
The sequel trilogy of the Andor Season 2.
Amazing. But before we get into that, we would like to welcome Sarah into the Triad for today. Thank you so much for joining us in our conversation. We are so happy to have you. Welcome to the Triad.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Very excited to have you, and so good to see you. So virtually, but we met in Dragon Con, then we met again in Japan because Dragon Con messes with memories.
Oh yeah.
So also apologies for that snafu over in Japan, but and now virtually now talking about Andor. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you again. I'm very, very excited to talk about these episodes.
I know. So why?
Were you able to when in Japan? Were you able to see the first episode of Andor during the?
I was.
Okay.
Yes, lucky enough to get into the panel on the celebration stage. I was blessed, as they say.
So you've been living the hype.
Yes, it was awesome. It was really exciting to watch it with everybody else and hear the live reactions and everything. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, Star Wars is so much better when it's with other people and other fans
really
reacting.
Is.
It really elevates the experience. Oh yeah.
For sure, 100%.
Yeah, now I see that and I can say it now because I've seen people on the social media be talking about it, but it looks like Lucasfilm is going to be doing a screening of the last arc of Andor, followed up straight away by a screening of Rogue One. So it seems like the cinematic dreams of
that is intense.
Many fans
that sounds like an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that sounds like slightly traumatic, maybe.
Yeah, but yet awesome. Because I will say, and I've mentioned it, in our previous coverage for Andor, I was very, very lucky to see the season before it's been streaming. So I've seen the whole thing, and I kind of did that right once the season was over. I'm like, I must go straight into Rogue One and see how it recontextualizes, and it's a rough watch. I'm not gonna lie.
I believe it.
After you finish this and you watch Rogue One, it'll be a different movie. But then once you finish Rogue One, you have to go straight into A New Hope, and it's
there's no stopping it.
Yeah, that one's not as recontextualized, but it's fine. So for all of you that are lucky enough to go to those screenings, I'm happy, jealous for you, and I hope everyone has fun. But before we get going into Arc 3 proper, we always like to get to know a new friend on the channel. We've been friends on convention floors, but now we're in the virtual medium. So Sarah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your Star Wars journey? We know you're on Twitch, so tell us a little bit of what you like to do in terms of content creation in the Star Wars atmosphere.
Absolutely. So I am SarahXCIII on all socials. So on Twitch.
I heard it was 93 on some spaces.
It is whatever you want it to be. I feel like everybody has a different one. Yeah.
Myth making at its finest.
I have collected nicknames over the years as I have been doing content, but I am a variety streamer over on Twitch, and I also do a lot of gaming content on YouTube. I play a lot of narrative RPG games. Action adventure games are some of my favorites. And then on Twitch, we just kind of hang out and talk, and it's a lot of community streams, a lot of hanging out, a lot of gaming. That's what I generally do online. And then for my Star Wars journey, I've always been a fan of Star Wars. I call myself a Star Wars enjoyer. I love all Star Wars. There is not a Star Wars that I don't love. But gosh, I remember watching the prequels in the theaters when I was a kid, but I didn't really appreciate them at the time. And I feel like getting online and during COVID when I started streaming and meeting all these lovely people in the community, and it reinvigorated my love for Star Wars. And so I feel like I've really had my Star Wars reawakening over the past 4 or 5 years. And I am just I'm full steam ahead. I'm obsessed with it. I love everything about it, and the community is amazing. And I just went to my first Star Wars celebration in Japan, and it was the best.
That was your first one.
That was my first one.
That's a good one for a first one.
It was just the best experience, getting to meet so many people and just experience the community together in the same place. It was just really, really
It's a
cool.
different thing than the social media
Oh,
Star
it
Wars
definitely,
community.
oh my gosh, yes, it is like night and
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And
The
it was
hate
your first
versus the
was
love.
yeah, hey,
Exactly.
the light side of the force is stronger.
Mm.
And it was also
Mhm.
your first time in Japan then?
Yeah, it was
Oh
also
my
my first
god,
time in Japan, and
that's a good double whammy right there.
I am already planning my trip back. I'm ready to go back. It was so sad to leave. It was amazing.
To Japan and Celebration in 27, I
All of
hope.
it. Yeah. Oh, I'll be in LA. You guys catch me in LA for sure.
Yeah, there's the people talk about con crud, but there's the inverse of that too, where it's just like you're just infected by conventions and you just can't just stop
Oh,
going after a while. It's
yeah.
just like all of them, all you
That's
have
what
to do.
happened to me too. I mean, Dragon Con was my first convention and I got the bug. I'm like obsessed with it. It's so
Full
fun.
steam ahead.
Yeah.
Exactly. Full steam
Yeah.
ahead.
There we go. And obviously I'll be, hopefully, if everything goes to plan, I'll be at DragonCon again this year. So hopefully we can just party it
Fingers
up there,
crossed.
and
Fingers crossed.
keep doing this con. But anyway, we can talk about conventions all day long,
Hmm.
and there's time enough for that. But the Zeitgeist is not about Star Wars Celebration. It's not about DragonCon. Right now, the Zeitgeist is all about two things: the Gorman Massacre and
Ooh.
Mon
Mhm.
Mothma.
Oh
So
yeah.
Oh, baby.
so because
Oh
because
yeah.
because I might be the spicy one of the group, I want to get y'all's reaction first about this arc of episodes and how you felt. Did it hit the mark? What did you like? What didn't you like? Sarah, you're our guest. Let's start with you.
Um, I feel I feel like I
Simple
could sit here.
episodes, to talk about.
There is so much. I have so much to
Yeah.
say. But I feel like to sum it up, the TLDR is like it was an emotional roller coaster. I think last night was the most that I have cried, sobbed watching any media in
Mhm,
years. I'm like, what is happening to me? This show is having an effect on me that I don't understand.
Yeah.
mhm,
um,
mhm,
Hmm.
mhm,
and I think it's just, I also just feel like it is probably some of the most important media that is
mhm,
being
mhm,
shown
mhm.
on television, streaming services, anywhere right now. And I think that everybody should watch it personally. But I have a lot of feelings about
Hard
it.
hard
But
to
that's the
disagree.
TLDR.
Nani, give it to us and give it to us straight.
Okay, so like Goose was saying, we got we got early access to the entire series, but I was only able to get through like the first two arcs. So I had to watch,
Oh,
this third arc with everybody. And then
That's a
I
lot of
had
waiting.
work today. So I watched like one episode last night, one episode this
oh,
morning, which
oh,
had me sobbing because that
oh
one in the middle had me sobbing. I was like, oh my no, I need
no.
to know what
Yeah.
happens next, but I can't. I need to go to work. I had to run after work
Oh.
to get here,
Oh
watch
my god.
the third one, and then here I am.
Oh my
So
God, are
How
you
are you able
okay?
to work? Yeah.
Are you
it was
okay?
it was intense. Like the whole time I work, I was like, why am I writing motions? I need to be watching Andor.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah. So I was obviously expecting it to be intense. I had preparation for the other ones because I could watch them at my leisure, and
Mhm,
these
mhm,
three
Mhm.
were just like, oh my god. I mean, so much happened.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I mean, it's a lot of things that we were expecting that were going to
mhm,
happen. We
mhm,
knew that
mhm, mhm,
the Gorman massacre was coming. We knew that Mon Mothma had to make her escape. We
mhm,
knew that her and Cassian were going to meet at some point. But all in all, like the way that everything happened was so crazy. We lost characters that we've fallen in love with. We got
mm.
one that I really wanted to come back.
Mm.
Um, you don't necessarily know who I mean. So
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
we got one that I was really looking forward to back.
Mhm, mhm.
And
Mhm.
I don't know, just the score is amazing.
Yeah,
The set design, everything is so good. The acting
yeah.
I
Oh,
mean, not that it hasn't been amazing because it has been amazing, since season one, but there were some masterclass, just scenes. And then we got one of the big speeches that we were really hoping
Mhm,
for.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
So all in all, it was a lot of things that we were expecting, but not necessarily in the way that I thought they were gonna happen.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I mean, I need to sit with it for a while because it
Yeah.
was like so much. But I really am, at this point, we're in the end game now. There's just the final
Mhm.
arc, and I'm like you guys. I feel like as soon as I'm done, I'm gonna want to watch Rogue One, and Rogue One breaks my heart. as well. But I think Rogue One's one of the best films that Star Wars has, overall. So now with the backstory of these 2 seasons of Andor, I think it's really going to just like raise the level of how impactful it is. But Goose, you said you were gonna be a little salty about it, so
I'm not salty. Okay, I'm not salty. I'm not salty. I'm not salty. I guess that first and foremost, before I go into any diatribe about any issues or not concerns, but things that
pet peeves.
Pet peeves, sure, let's call it that for lack of a better word. I want to like outright just say, it's amazing, right? And/or don't miss, right? And like in terms of the quality, like you said, Nani, the acting, like everything that built this arc, it's a masterclass in terms of storytelling and writing. And I think that Tony Gilroy and the whole team
the entire
has done
team,
this show has done like an incredible job, not just for a Star Wars show, but for any show period, to do the heavy lifting that they've done and to tell the story that they've been telling under a Disney umbrella, especially under the kind of government that we're living in, is kind of like a miracle that this is a Disney story where we're saying the word genocide during actual genocides going on. To talk about the corruption of media and disinformation in a time where media and free speech is being dismantled. So I think that all those things are particularly strong and powerful, and I think that it means more, right, in terms of the discourse of what it says about not just America, right, because we can talk about like the US and politics, but the world, right? This is like the current wave of fascism that this country's going through is not unique, right? It's been
not
going
isolated
on in different parts of the world, if you open a history book. So it's kind of important in that way, in terms of its contextual meta narrative, but also in the in the zeitgeist, right, that we're living in right now. So with that out of the way, I do think that in rewatching it, I felt not necessarily disappointment, right? Because it's still great and like the tension is amazing, and even though that things are gonna happen in the way and the order that they are, it still manages, to keep your heart at your throat. And like I felt those emotions, and it was amazing to kind of go through the waves, right, of the show. But in many ways, and maybe the way that others experienced it is the opposite of how I experienced it, but kind of like knowing that we were going through this journey kind of didn't hit as hard for me in terms of like being like, bam, that was amazing Star Wars storytelling, because I'm like, yeah, that's what I expected. Was it amazing? Yes, but yeah, like my Mothma gave her speech and she got away. Obviously, we know that, and the Gorman massacre happened, and we knew that was going to happen. And Cassie made it out because he knew he was going to make it out. So, in many ways, like all the things, like I'm just like, yeah, it was amazing how we got there, but it also wasn't,
So you're saying it was like maybe a little bit anticlimactic?
No, because I think that they did.
They did a really good, like the building of tension was insane. Yeah. Like amazing. I felt like even though I knew they were gonna get away, like that whole scene after the speech, like and the way that the score is done and everything, and you're like, they're getting away because we know they're alive after this, but it was still like, how are they gonna pull it off?
Exactly. So, yeah, I watch Andor with my mother, and she's not as like her Star Wars education is building, and she doesn't really know about all the plot armor in Andor, and so she's sitting here watching it, and she's looking at me, and she's going, "Who? They're gonna die! They're gonna die! They're gonna die!" And I'm like, well. I'm like, actually, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, you have no idea how much plot armor is in this scene. But I guess it's the thing that excites me, or at least, it causes so much anxiety, is we know that they're getting to this point, but it's the mystery behind how they get to that point that gets me excited. And so I think that they did such an amazing job of just like putting us through that journey and helping us feel almost like I felt like the same emotions that they were feeling. I was sitting there like, oh my god, I'm like, is this gonna work? Like, what is he gonna do? And I just thought it was, for me, it's like, oh yeah, get my heart rate up, please.
Oh yeah. Well then, and it's really cool that since your mom is not like, doesn't know where everything is going,
the best way to see it, honestly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And especially because this show really has no mercy for its characters. Like the ones we
Mm.
know that survive, it's because we know because we've seen them alive in the
Right.
future. But
Yeah.
everybody else is up for grabs. So
Yeah.
I feel like, especially like my heart was here the whole time, even though I knew they were going to survive. So I can't imagine going into it without knowing,
Without
you
knowing,
know,
yeah.
how
Yeah.
it goes. I think I'd be like yelling at the TV, like, what?
Yeah, especially
100%.
with that second episode, because with a lot of
Yeah.
Andor, in season one, and
Mm.
especially with season two, like everything's the pressure cooker, right? Is like everything's like
Hmm.
where
Mhm.
all these cuts to all these different things that are
Yes.
happening simultaneously all at the same time. As like the tension just keeps being raised, and I think some of the things that work best for this arc and the Gormans themselves is just how they're as a people, right? Because I mean, we do meet individual Gormans in their story, and and the
Hmm.
leader and his daughter, and like everybody, we meet them. But I think the more powerful thing is that we get to know them as a people and a culture, and we've been
Yeah.
hearing
Yeah.
about them since season one. Obviously, we know about them
Yeah.
from Rebels and other parts of Star Wars lore, but to finally get to see them and see their culture and see how they function and
Mhm.
see how the Tarkin massacre occurred before and how they're
Yeah.
a people that are grieving and trying to get over, and how the Empire just keeps putting their boot on their on their throat.
Mhm.
I think that's what made the scene a lot more heavy and tragic, because we just see
Yeah.
how they're literally being, lambs to the slaughter, right? And
Mhm.
Yeah.
how they're trying to fight for their freedom without knowing that that's what they're being,
Yeah.
herded to do, so that they're,
Yeah.
eventually destroyed for their resources. And it's one of those things that, it hits home in many ways. I don't know if you felt this, Nani, but like, as an island of colonialism, right, where
Yeah.
it has happened to our people in the past
Mhm.
before, Grito de Lares, and many places like that, where like our people have been massacred by a colonial empire, the United States of America. It's kind of like it's a very powerful proxy to see it done so well, and especially done not just when they're doing their chants, right?
Mhm.
Galaxy X watch and
Yeah.
all that stuff, but to have that transition
No, but
into
even more honestly, when they start singing their
singing.
anthem,
Yep, yep,
Yes.
yep,
right
yep.
before everything goes to crap, like, tensions are getting high, it's about to erupt, and then they kind of come together as a people to just,
Hmm.
sing together, and then just all hell blows loose, like right after that moment. So
Yeah.
it's like such like a juxtaposed scene. It's like, oh, okay, they are trying to be peaceful. Look, they're singing
Hmm.
together. They're not trying to be agitative, but obviously the Empire is doing everything it can to like get it started, even if they weren't the ones to shoot
Hmm.
first.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Mhm.
I mean, I thought it was a really powerful scene. So, how did you feel about it, Sarah?
Oh man, I'm like I feel a lot of things when I'm watching a lot of
Hmm.
different media anyways. So it's
Hmm.
I tend to be a bit more on the emotional side when I'm watching stuff
Hmm.
like this. So I knew like the moment, when you just the acting and like they're
Hmm.
coming
Hmm.
out
Hmm.
and then, these characters know what might be happening, and then that build up with Rylands, and he's telling
Hmm.
his daughter, he's like, well, we
Yeah.
can't do this. You
Yeah.
need to leave. This is a
Yeah. Be
trap. Like
quiet when we're
it's
Yeah.
dead.
like
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. We'll be quiet when we're
that
dead.
he's right. You need to listen to him, and you're screaming at your TV. You're like, stop, like don't
Yeah.
do it, but what's gonna happen. And I remember when I can't remember the character's name, the one with the hat that started singing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's such a good actor, and the way that his facial expressions and the way he
Oh,
just
yeah.
sat there and that acceptance on his face
Hmm.
and like that like just very stoic look, and I was like, oh man, I was like,
Oh,
oh
yeah.
no, this is no, this is the nope. And yeah, it really hits you, and it's a gut punch,
Yeah.
honestly. And yeah, just hearing the songs, and I feel like they did such an amazing job of building that culture and building
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
the humanizing the Gore and
Yeah.
showing who they were
Mhm.
and giving us that connection to them. So when this does start, it just hits you so hard, and it hit me hard. So
Yeah.
it was just I'm just sitting there like with the blanket up, and I'm like, oh my
It's
God,
like,
when is
what's
this, like I'm just
happening?
waiting for it to break, and
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
just a lot.
it's a lot, and it kind of reframes the empire, right? Because and
Mhm.
everyone has said it ad nauseum how the stormtroopers in the
Mhm.
films are comedic almost, in how badly they
Mhm.
are able to take down, or not take down the main characters. But
Yeah.
here, the oppression of the Empire is palpable and is terrifying, not just visually first, right, with the erection of the armory, and it's an imposing tower that casts its shadow on this memorial plaza in Palmo Square, I think it's called. But then the repossession of the square, right, visually by the agents of the Empire in a place that's supposed to be for gore and celebrating a place of remembrance for them, and then have that place be occupied by the Empire, and then have the stormtroopers just kind of close off the whole of the thing, and the TIE fighters just flying in. It really creates a sense of dread that you
It was
start.
scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying, especially with the sound design.
Yeah,
and the way that it was all set up, because it's like they're so wanting to go back to that plaza and like have like a demonstration, and then they think that the removal of the barriers is like a positive thing without noticing that they're just being baited to go in, and Cassian's freaking out like, this is a trap, they're building a fortress, like somebody please get the word out. But they've been suppressed for so long at this point that they see that opportunity to like not stay silent as something that they need for it to be empowered, without knowing that they've been led there by the Empire from the beginning. But before we talk about the actual, or continue to talk about the actual massacre, I want to hear your guys' thoughts about how Cyril and Dedra were dealing with what was happening.
That have been led slaughters of their own. Sarah, let's start with you. Like, have you been a stan of that ship? So I know a lot of people online have been, invested in Dedra and Cyril in a weird way. I'm gonna say that.
I don't really know how I feel about that whole relationship, and I think it they really hit home during the panel at Star Wars Celebration, where she said it just gets, I think both of them were just like, it just gets really weird, like, very weird. And when you actually get to watch it play out on screen, you're like, yeah, they were not kidding. It is weird. I mean, because earlier arcs, you see their relationship and everything, and then you find out truths about it, and then you kind of see where they are now. And I think both of those characters are very fascinating. I don't know how I feel about them together, but I think that it was the perfect way. I think it played out perfectly the way that it needed to, if that makes sense. I think Cyril kind of coming into this realization that he had, and Dedra also coming into her own realization, and kind of them both understanding the consequences of where they are and their actions, and where I'm like, I want to feel bad for Cyril, like sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. He's just one of those characters that's kind of an enigma to me. Like I don't really know how I feel about him sometimes, but I at the same time I do really feel terrible for him, and towards the end of episode 8, and I'm like, God, you want to feel so bad for him, but at the same time you're like, oh, I just want to choke you.
Because he kind of deserved it.
Exactly.
It's really, they're really fascinating characters, right? Especially because it's funny to see, not funny, well, yeah, funny, funny and engaging to see the discourse online around them, because it's so interesting to see like how many people are in the redemption arc for their characters. I mean, obviously I can't speak for Dedra because that's just to be seen, but at least until now for both of them, we know that they're not getting any redemption. And I think that Cyril's extremely fascinating because he's such a good proxy for all the toxic masculinity that Andrew Tate, incel fanboy that's into meme coins, and Elon Musk and all this right wing fascist trash, right? And how they're kind of just stuck in this feedback loop of just kind of trying to just appease daddy, right? And appease the system of control that they believe so strongly, and even in the face of so much destruction and chaos around them, and how they see that the Empire is not a force for good. And I think it's interesting that people were like in the camp of like Cyril kind of teetering towards redemption, but not really. It's like he's starting to wake up, but he's not truly in the camp of like, oh, all of this is wrong. It's more like Dedra's wrong for like doing this, not the Empire, and
it's the betrayal,
right? And then the automatic,
it's the betrayal.
Then the automatic deprogramming all of a sudden when he sees Cassian, which I thought was
Oh,
good. I
yeah.
loved it so much because it's like this uncontrollable rage, or where this,
Yeah.
we have
because
to.
he's like seeing his world fall apart. Like
Yeah.
from the beginning of the arc, you can tell that he like something's going on with him because he is no longer perfectly coiffed. And you can see the tension, and then like when everything goes to crap and he's just like standing in the plaza like watching everything fall apart, and then he just sees Cassian and it's like zoop, zeroes in, and it's like all the rage, everything that has happened, because to him,
you need
Cassian,
an enemy.
and not only
Cassian
that,
ruined,
but and he was like the catalyst of everything that happened. Like he got fired from his first job for wanting to investigate the murders that happened in that very first episode. So like Cassian is one of the most impactful, important people in his life. And then Cassian's just like,
who are you?
Who are you?
That was so perfect. It was
good.
so perfectly delivered, because Cassian is like completely confused about, why are you attacking me?
Yeah.
Who
Especially
are you?
with
And I think
all of this going around us, but then you
And
take
I
the time to
feel like-
manifest your rage.
especially because, and I feel like some people would think like he lowered his gun because he maybe like regretted what he was about to do, but to me it was more like he was so in shock that this person that he thinks is his greatest enemy, he probably assumed that Cassian thought of him as his greatest enemy, and then suddenly it's like, he doesn't even know I exist. What? And then bye.
It's kind of a double betrayal, right? He gets betrayed by his let's be kind and call Dedra a girlfriend. He gets betrayed by Dedra, and then he gets betrayed by by his arch enemy daddy. And it's just like,
and then Rylan
too much to
shoots
hide.
him in the head.
Well,
but that moment was like so shocking.
Comeback's gotta go.
It's so fast. Like he gets shot, and I was like, wait, did he just get shot in the head? Like this just happened? And then Rylan's just standing there like, you totally deserved it. Yep. Deal with it.
I definitely agree. Like I feel like there's definitely a good argument for those who are like want to believe, oh, he was having this realization. He was going to sit down on the floor across from Cassian, and they were going to have a heart to heart right there. Like, no, I don't believe. I can see why people would say that, but I just don't believe in my heart of hearts that is what Cyril was thinking in that moment. I definitely agree that it was very much so like a, what? And
how do you not know who I am?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, he wasn't completely deprogrammed. Maybe he was on the path.
I think if we had like 3 more seasons of Andor, we could have somehow switched Cyril. But I think in the amount of time that we
hadn't been there, he hadn't run into Cassian. He might have. Maybe. That
was just a culmination of all of years and years of build up, and it just blow up.
Well, and I agree with you completely too, Sarah. It wasn't like that he saw that the Empire was a bad guy. It was about the betrayal from Dedra, because he thinks very highly of himself, and he thought he was like in control and he was like instrumental in everything that was happening. And then when he realized that Dedra was using him, that just snapped him. I think that was it. It wasn't about, oh, the Empire's bad. It's about, I've been used and manipulated this entire time.
And I think that there is, a small part of him. I want, and this is why I like, in a way that I want to feel that there's some redemption for him. Like I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think that him being on Gorman, for being with the Gore people for so long, it did allow him to feel some sympathy for them. He got to, he experienced the culture. He was living with them day in and day out. He was working with them. He was doing all of this. I definitely feel like there was some sympathy to that, but I don't think that it would have outweighed. I just don't think it would have outweighed, who he is to his core. And I definitely feel that, yes, there is some of that sympathy element there, but I also feel like the betrayal from Dedra and finding out all of that is just the main driver there. 100%. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Dedra, because as they say at the beginning of the, I don't remember if it's the first or the second episode, where they say that the other Imperial is the trigger, but she's the finger, right? And she has to pull the trigger. So like, how do we feel about her? Because we do see that she's uncomfortable, but she still follows through. So what do we think of her journey so far, especially after this massacre occurs?
I read something today, I don't know where it was, but it made me think a lot about Dedra's character and the direction that her character is possibly going, because obviously we don't know what happens in the final arc with her. We don't really know what the implications of her actions on Gorman are. And I know I don't know where I read it or where I heard it, but I know it's very hard. They make it very, very hard for you to leave the empire, for you to
Yeah.
defect. And I feel like in doing so, they try to, I cannot remember where I saw this, but like they try to implicate everybody who is
Yeah.
so they involve everyone. And I've seen this in all media that I've read. Like I read a lot of the books, and even like I go
Well,
back
you're
to
complicit in everything. Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
I think they
They
say that
involve
in
everybody, which is
Rise and Fall Galactic Empire. I think that,
exactly. I think maybe it was a quote that I read from which I actually ordered that book because I wanted to read it. I haven't read it yet. And I was like,
very
I
good, very
need
good.
to read this book after Andor. I was like, I feel
Yeah.
like this will hit different. But like the actions of the Empire, and I feel like Dedra, them doing the whole, well, you're the trigger and all of that. That's them putting her in that position to be complicit with this. And I feel like I think a lot of her feelings, a lot of her quote unquote regret is definitely around Cyril, and probably maybe a little bit of guilt because of the position that she put him in. But I don't know. Sometimes she's hard to read for me.
Yeah.
I feel like it's hard. I don't know.
And that's a compliment to Denise because she does such a
Uh-huh.
good job
Oh yeah.
with Dedra. And it's so funny to see her because I don't think she was Denise, not Dedra. Denise was as active in the promotional campaign for
Uh-huh.
season 1. I mean, she was in interviews and stuff, but I don't remember her being as present as she has been
Right.
in this round. And she is amazing and so funny, like in all the
Yeah.
interviews. So it's just hilarious to
Oh,
see her like in this promotional tour for Andor be the
And she's
complete
so different
opposite.
from
Yeah,
yes,
Dedra.
complete
yes.
It's
opposite of
Uh-huh.
Dedra.
insane. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like I want to have a drink with Denise. Dedra,
Yes.
not so much. I
Yeah.
don't even want to be
Dedra
around
scares
her.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
but
also loved her. I loved her in the panel where she was like, it's, a little less girl boss and a lot more fascist.
yeah, yeah.
I'm like, oh boy, I can't wait to see this. Like that was my favorite quote from the whole
Love
panel.
it.
I was like, I freaking love her so much.
And I have to give, and to that point, I really have to give kudos, right, to like again the cast and crew for like not mincing words, right, about
Yeah.
everything that the show is an allegory and proxy for. Because
Mhm.
Disney could have been, oh, don't say the F word and don't say the G
And this is
word, and
completely fiction.
yeah,
Don't worry about
but
Mhm.
it.
they've been, very transparent about it. Obviously, they're not saying that, oh, this is, P-47 and like all these things. They're, playing coy with that, but they're saying the quiet part out loud by saying all the other stuff. But anyway, Nani, what do you think of Dedra's arc so far
Yeah.
in BBY 2?
Yeah. So I was always fascinated by both Cyril and Dedra, and especially because they are both so well acted. But Dedra especially, I think, has been really surprising because she didn't really want to be a part of the Gorman project to begin with. She was super hyper focused on, finding Luthen and the Access project and everything. So she was kind of, forced into this project. Not that she didn't excel at it, because it's a promotion. I'm part of the Empire. I want to get the medals. I love that she uses that against Cyril as well. She's like, "Oh, you weren't
didn't mind the
complaining about the
promotions.
promotions."
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I think you can tell that, like you were saying, Sarah, that she was uncomfortable. It's one thing to be directing the destruction of a planet from far away, as you were seeing in the first arc, the second arc, but then this one, she's like, boots on the ground on Gorman, seeing everything that's happening. So you can tell that she's not okay about necessarily how fast it's happening.
Yeah.
And how kind of, even though she's the one to give the order, it's kind of out of her control because she's not the one that's being the tactical,
She has to, Partagas
Yes.
not forces her, but nudges her.
Yeah. So I think there's kind of an ownership issue there. It's like, if I'm going to take the fall for it, it's because of decisions I made, not necessarily of something that was planned. I did give the okay, so I do have, ultimate authority to do that. But, she's been very methodical about things. She doing her own things. Like, she was doing her own investigations before, she was doing all these things. And then suddenly you bring in, I don't remember what the guy's name was, the one who was like the tactician, the one who was the gun.
Kato, right?
Fascist number one. I don't know.
Yeah, that guy.
So it's like, you can tell when she's having the conversations that she's like, but who's making the decisions to send ships here? Who's making, like she kind of lost control of that. So I think there's a lot with how she was feeling because of that lack of control, not necessarily because she felt bad about what was happening. Um, because she does seem like a person who believes wholeheartedly in the Empire and what the Empire does is good. And then as soon as she was told that this order comes directly from the Emperor, it was a little bit like, well, if the Emperor's ordering me, then it should be fine. But I think she was racked by Cyril's reaction to everything that was happening. And towards the end, I think she did realize, because you had that amazing when she finally kind of cracks and she like forces herself to like straighten her uniform and like go back to form, which was so well done. I mean, she doesn't say a word, and it's so well acting, like her face twitching and the arm and everything. It's just like so crazy. But I think some of that is just straight up fear, because she notices that there's probably going to be backlash and she might be held responsible for what happened. And then especially after, because obviously the whole thing was we're changing the story, this wasn't an actual massacre, but after Mothma actually gets the speech across, that the Empire might do a bait switch and say, oh, it was, but it wasn't because we ordered it, it's because Dedra, this person, orchestrated it. So I don't know. I think the next art is going to be interesting, to say the least. But I think a lot of her reaction, because you do, but we don't.
It's not fair.
But I think that honestly, it was more because obviously everybody wants to see redemption as well, because Dedra's even more interesting, I think, than Cyril. But I think a lot of her reaction wasn't necessarily out of guilt. I think it was more out of fear. So I don't know. We'll see.
It might be interesting. That's all I can say. It might be. It might be underwhelming. It might be boring. Who knows? Who knows? I certainly don't. But we could be talking about this massacre forever because so much happened. But before we move into the third episode 9, the Rise of Skywalker and Mon Mothma and everything, I want to talk a little bit about Wilman, because Wilman, sometimes gets, not ignored, but there's so much other stuff happening around him that sometimes it gets lost in the noise a little bit. But it's interesting to see his character because he's the catalyst, right, to have Cassian go to Gore and see everything that's happening, because he's still associated with Saw at this point. But then when he had his little girlfriend in Minarao, but then we see that he's also has a new girlfriend now in Gorman. So interesting, right? Because we've been talking about through the other arcs, like how through fascism, through war, through rebellion, love persists, and there's normalcies in life that still kind of blossom through the dead asphalt, but what did everyone think of Wilman's journey through this one? Because we've seen him escape Ferrix, and now he's snorting Rito and engaging in more rebellion. So Sarah, what do you think of Wilman so far?
I worry about little baby Will. I definitely was super worried that we were going to lose him last night. I kept saying in episode 8, I was like, oh my God, we're going to lose him. I was like, something's going to happen to him. Something's going to happen to sweet little baby Will. I was like, please don't. And then when he went and he's like, I can't leave Drina. I can't leave her. I'm like, stop. I'm like, just go. But I think I worry about him because I think it's he's young, he's easily influenced, and I think with seeing his arc with Saw or the episode with Saw and seeing how he was influenced by Saw, and it seems like he's a little bit more grown into himself or confident with himself in this arc, and he he's a little bit more hardened by the rebellion and a little bit more hardened by what he's seen and what he's done, and because we don't know what he's done in the past year. I mean, if he's been running with Saw, he's God only knows what he's been up to. And it's nice to see him be a little bit braver and be a little bit more comfortable with himself and confident with himself. But at the same time, I'm like, That's the little baby.
Mhm.
And also like seeing his interactions with Bix and Cassian at the beginning of the
Yeah.
arc, I was
Mhm.
like, they're like a little family,
Mhm. Mhm.
and they're treating like it's almost like he's like their son, and he's taking
Yeah.
care of him, and they take care of
Yeah.
each other, and I'm like, oh my god,
Like,
I'm like,
yeah.
jeez.
When they're like in Gorman and they say Stone and Sky. I mean, it's like, oh my
Oh,
god,
Oh
so
yeah.
oh,
Every time they
stop.
say it, Ferric, Stone and Sky. Every time. Every
Every
time.
time.
Nani, what about what about Stone and Sky, Willman, and you? Like, what was your
Oh my
relationship
God.
with on this arc?
I mean, it's so rough because he was so young when we started with him in season 1, and then everything that happens with his father, and then, all the trauma that goes into it, and so much of, Ferric, Stone and Sky, him, Bix, Cassian, and Brasso. And then
Mhm.
we get
Yeah.
to see them being a family in that very first arc, and
Yep.
then they lose
And
Brasso.
B2EMO, don't forget B2EMO.
And B2 emo,
Oh.
which I'm still
I
I'm
hope
still
he's
hope.
okay.
Where's B2 emo? Yeah.
Hope he's happy.
So to see then that arc with Saw terrified me because I was like, oh no, because he was already, kind of like into explosives,
Mhm.
and now he's like
Yeah.
sniffing the rhino and hanging with Saw. And I thought, oh no, he's just gonna be a mini Saw, and he's gonna be super militant, and he's super gonna get himself killed.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and now we see him almost, get killed by trying to find his girl, which is
Mm.
super endearing. But it's like, oh, you went from like one death trap to another death trap. Please stop. um, so I don't know. I think it's been such a journey for him, and the fact that I'm super glad that he's still okay. Like when he
I
walked into the
know.
room and you could see like the leg and whatever, I thought we were just gonna see like his body on the bed. Like
Yeah.
No, don't
I
say
was,
that.
oh god, it was scary.
I was definitely a little bit worried when they
Yeah.
came in, and I was like, well, when they came into the safe house and they were like, he's in the room, I was like, who is it? And it took me a second to like realize who it was, and then I saw him and I was like, oh god. I was like, don't tell me. I was like, don't tell me. I was like, okay,
Mhm.
he's good.
Yeah.
God.
They've had no mercy. We lost
Mhm.
Brasso in that first arc, then we
Yep.
lost Cinta, and then I mean, so I have no expectations about characters surviving.
Listen, I'm a seasoned Game of Thrones fan. I am not. I'm.
You don't assume anybody's gonna survive.
I don't assume anybody is going to live through anything, especially with Andor. Andor, I feel like is like it's right
Yeah.
up there with okay. Don't get attached to anybody
Yeah,
except for
because they're
Cassian
gonna die.
and Mon
Mhm.
Mothma.
Well, and even Cassian, you wait long enough,
Well, that's true.
doesn't
Just
end
let me
to
live in this bubble, okay?
Yeah. So now we know he makes it to Yavin, but a lot of people are gonna die in the next couple of years. So
Yeah.
And what a pleasure it is to see Javin again, like in all
I
its
know.
Rogue One glory,
Mhm.
Yep.
and now see the bureaucracy of some sort of structure in the rebellion trying to
Yeah.
weigh Cassian down. I always forget the name of the general captain or whatever
Yeah.
from Rogue One that all of a sudden pops up now. Which
Draven?
Yeah.
thank you.
Draven, yeah.
And he shows up. He's just telling him, "You can't go out on unsanctioned missions." And
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
like, "My
It's like,
dude, it's
the
like,
deal. I do
Watch
what I
me.
want.
yeah, it's like this is called a rebellion." It's
Yeah,
like you
hold my beer.
to quote an infamous line from Rogue One that was cut from the film. They rebel, I rebel.
Mhm.
And so that's what rebels are gonna do. It's like don't be a stick in the mud. Like I understand that this is an organized thing. They need to fight another organized thing, but cut Cassian some slack. He's played by Diego
Oh,
Luna. He can do what he wants.
and we got the line. Rebellions
Oh
are built
yeah.
on hope.
Rebellion.
Rebellions are
Oh,
built on hope.
how did we miss that one? Yeah, like that
Yeah.
was a beautiful moment, right? And then
Yeah.
because he's the one that tells the bellhop, I forgot the name of the bellhop. He
Yeah.
tells Cassian the story about the Tarkin
About the
massacre,
Tarkin massacre.
Yeah.
and then lets him,
Then he
sneak in
remembers him. Yeah.
as
Mhm.
a news anchor, whatever his cover was. The
Yeah.
second time around, then doesn't log his information and
Yeah.
then gives him
And
that.
gives him the room so he has the view and all the things. And then I hope things go well for you. Rebellions are built on hope. And Cassian like pauses for a little bit and then leaves. And I was like, oh, way to hide a beautiful moment in like a
Yes.
random character.
What's
Mhm.
that? What's that quote from? Maybe I'm making up this quote from Nemec, but didn't he say like "There's heroes on the frontier of the rebellion" or something like that? And like
Yeah,
he's
there's something from his manifesto that's
Yeah.
something like that. And
Right.
like the bellhop, he's a real one for that one because from him,
literally
from his mouth to Cassian's lips to then Jyn Erso's ears, you know, and then she continues that mantra for the rest of Rogue One. So good writing, Tony Gilroy, Dan Gilroy, and Bo Willimon. You've done, and I'm pretty sure I'm missing a writer in there, but you've done an amazing job in kind of tying all these loose threads together. But speaking of threads, let's speak of some fine threads, not Gorman thread, but, you know, let's talk about Alderaanian and Chandrillan threads with, you know, Bail, Organa, and Mon Mothma up in the Senate, where more things are happening now in the aftermath of the Gorman massacre. Maybe here's where I might start getting a little snippy about things that occurred. But what was, you know, we're dealing now with Star Wars Rebels territory, right? Where we know what happens in this post-Gorman world, and we know that the lead up to where everything is kind of going for the things that are supposed to happen in this episode. And we expect all the things that are happening, and we get them, but maybe we didn't get them in the way that we were envisioning or that we expected, and we'll get to that. But Sarah, what do you think of episode 9 and the approach to Mon Mothma, her speech and her defection from the Empire and embracing the rebellion in earnest now?
I mean, like I said earlier,
simple question.
Yeah, simple.
Super.
I mean, like I said earlier, the entire sequence going from, you know, the massacre occurring, witnessing the unrest in the Senate, and Mon realizing what she needs to do, and having Bail there. As we know, Bail is a constant there, and he's always been a constant throughout Star Wars, and we know that it's just Bail, and
he's
him supporting. Exactly. I feel like he is like a comfort character. So, and shout out to Benjamin Bratt. He's absolutely killing it as Bail. But seeing Bail be there to support Mon and make sure, you know, you do what you got to do. I've got to stay here, and you know, we know how that all plays out. But the build up to there, and then to her, you know, talking to Luthen and finding out Erskine, and then all of that, and like it's just this for Mon. It's just like and it's building up and building up and building up, and then the speech, just incredible moment with the speech, and all of it. But like I said earlier, just the tension in that entire episode, knowing where we end, but not knowing how we got there, and watching it play out was stressful. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and I also loved the little all of the things that Luthen did behind the scenes to make everything work out the way that it did. Was just also just, I was just very clever, so clever. I loved it.
Nani, what about you?
No, I actually want to I want to hear what you think first, because you're the one.
Yeah,
that's
I'm curious.
You're the opposite opinion probably, because I liked it too. I'll say my opinion, but I want to hear why you're snippy about
the problem. Okay, here's what the problem's gonna be. The problem is that as I'm gonna talk about it, I'm gonna objectively talk about how it's actually great. So when I devolve that into the nitpick, it's gonna sound so pedantic and obnoxious that it's just gonna ruin any credibility I might have built up in discussing Star Wars media or shows or films. But and maybe my big problem is just kind of seeing how people have been so effusive about the quality of this episode that I'm just maybe reacting as a contrarian to it. But at the end of the day, it just boils down to the speech, to be perfectly blunt. Because I think the episode as a whole is just amazing. I think that the lead up is great because, you know, it's the tension of Mon not knowing who to trust and knowing what Luthen is capable of. So, you know, she doesn't, I mean, we know Cassian, but she doesn't know Cassian.
Right.
So at that point when he arrives for her, you know, we as, you know, external characters, we understand that
trust him.
Yeah, right.
But for her, she's like, is this gonna be the guy that just kills me so that I don't snitch to the Empire? So I think those things played out great in terms of like her character development. And I especially like when they leave finally, you know, and Cassian, you know, it takes her and like she has to remove her trappings of the Senate and then put on the coat of a rebel to kind of embrace that character finally.
Welcome to
And
the
then
rebellion.
Yep, and then be in the safe house. I thought those scenes were amazing, the ones in the safe house, because all of a sudden you've removed Mon finally from the trappings of politics and luxury, and all of a sudden to be like in this dark, cold, drab, dark apartment. I think it's just visually stunning. Have finally Diego and Genevieve interact. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
My nitpick is just seeing that speech and how people have reacted so effusively to it. And like, I'm sorry, I thought the speech was mid at best, because we've seen Saw talk about Rido, and we've seen Marva say amazing things, and the Narkina 5 speech by Kino Loy, Evel's speech after Cinta got obviously Luthen's I Share My Dreams with Ghosts. Like,
Nemik's manifesto.
Nemik's manifesto, like even Cassian's like small lines in the first episode of "You're coming home to yourself." Like there are these lines that just gutted me.
Fat and satisfied.
Yeah, that just left me fat and satisfied. Exactly. Like I've been so well fed by incredible writing and all these very impactful moments that all of a sudden, when the most impactful moment for the series probably happens, I'm just like, oh, that's it. She didn't say anything remarkable to me. Did she say truths? Yeah, obviously she's talking about truth and how truth is important. So for me, she's like, yeah, cool, yeah, like truth. Yeah, we need truth. Yeah, I got it. Like, you didn't say anything that I'm kind of being mind blown about. And then she does the Palpatine name drops. I'm just like, yeah, cool.
Right.
The speech in Rebels is better, and that was written for children, so I felt like the gravitas of that speech just didn't land for me, just because I don't think that the writing was particularly impressive based on the bar that the rest of the show has established for what character writing can be. And to be honest, also, I kind of felt that Genevieve's performance wasn't top notch on that one. And maybe it's because, if you look at the Andor Declassified video that Star Wars put out on YouTube, she's just acting on her own in a soundstage, so maybe that's why she's just like acting by herself, and maybe she just thrives acting opposite other people. But I don't know, that whole thing for me, not that it wasn't good thematically, especially how it's cut with everything else that's happening around it, with the media guy trying to cut the feed, and then the Empire checking in to see like what's happening, and Cassian trying to get there, and the Bales,
and then the room is locked.
Yeah.
Why is it locked? It's been open all year. Oh, we checked the protocols. We got it fixed.
Everything,
what are the odds?
Everything around it, and the technical aspects of how the show built that moment, I think, are amazing and beautiful, and I felt the tension throughout the whole thing. But just the speech itself, I'm just like, yeah, truth is good, and we need truth, and I get the impact in terms of the moment of like the particular things she said in terms of what it means for our zeitgeist and how we're not talking about those concepts, and all of a sudden
and actually saying the word genocide,
and actually a Disney show comes in to say those things. So I get that, but I don't want to gild this lily further. So, Nani, react to me. Tell me how I'm wrong.
Okay, so I actually agree with you, because I was expecting, like, as soon as we saw that the scene was going to happen, the expectations for that speech are so great, and the way that they set it up were so amazing. Like, all the things that they're saying at the beginning, like they're showing you snippets of the Empire's version of the story, and how everybody's so adamant about, oh my God, it's right, they're all victims and our heroes and blah, 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 blah. And then when they do the switch up, and then I thought Bale was fantastic, actually, which it's still sometimes a bit jarring for him not to be Jimmy Smits. Like, it takes me like a second to be like, okay, it's Bale, but he's really pulling it off, honestly.
He captures the essence of Bale, so it works.
Yes.
He has like the gravitas, and like you were saying, that he's like a comforting character, like you feel safe when you're around him and all the things. So when he starts, and it was like a very lawyer thing to do, like, this is the rule. It was, you have to start with president. you know, this was passed by the emperor in cases of emergency. The guy who spoke just before said emergency multiple times. So I'm invoking it. Like, I felt like I was there, like, on trial. Yeah, go. Go. So I thought it was masterful. So there's so much lead up to it. And then I feel like when the speech was getting good, when she does the name drop, they cut. And I was like, that's when when I was starting to get, like, really inspired into it. I feel like even if you cut the transmission, like, she should have kept going, like, to inspire the other senators in the room, like, do more specific accusations of what's happening. Because when she was speaking about the monster and all the things, I thought she was going to say the Empire. And when she specifically says, like, Emperor Palpatine, like, it could have gone so much further, or her admitting that she's been, like, helping the rebellion the entire time. Because the lead up to her being the one that gives the speech is the fact that she has so much credibility and so many people believe her. And it has to be a voice like hers to be opposite to what the Empire is saying. So right when it's starting to get really inspiring, that's when it stops. So it stopped, and I was like, but, oh wait, that's all we get? And then they start leaving, and I was like, oh. But it's still so well shot, like, in the aftermath, that you don't really notice at the time, I don't think, because you're just like, now it's the adrenaline of her having to get out and having to deal with who she's gonna believe. Because I really did love the whole, because even when Luthen first said that Bale's team is corrupt, I was like, wait, what are you talking about? But Bale, it's Bale. But then when she asked him if she knows them personally, he's like, no, I don't, I can't. And I was like, oh, wait. And then almost immediately you found out that one of them is corrupt. But from Mon Mothma's perspective, you know, she's always had Bale by her side. Bale is somebody she actually does trust. She's never completely trusted Luthen, and she trusts him even less after, you know,
he this is gone.
No, after he killed her childhood friend, after she finds out that her attendant, you know, Erskine, has been working for him for years now. So when that line, and she looks actually terrified. The person I am the most afraid of right now is you. So obviously the person that Luthen is recommending would be the least trustworthy person, as opposed to from Bale,
but
that she would trust.
But then it's Diego Luna shows up, and how can you say no to Havana Nights? You cannot say
the Cassian effect, right?
No, and especially because he's so, like, sincere, and the fact that
and he has friends everywhere.
He can actually, he has friends everywhere, and the fact that he can say not only that he knows Vel, but that he's lived with her, that he and her are two of the only survivors of Aldhani. The fact that he personally knows Luthen, Gorman, because Luthen. Obviously that he was in Gorman as well, but the fact that, you know, Luthen says this is somebody that I actually trust, that I personally know, and somebody that I know that will get you to where you need to go. So I think, and obviously, you know, desperate times, desperate measures, and then the one person who's corrupt, like, shows her hand really early. So, but I mean, it's so well done, so much adrenaline. The score is so good at when they're just kind of don't run, but move, but this is happening. And so many moving parts to actually get out. And then the driver, and even though she started to realize, I feel like, that the rebellion is real, was, you know, after Tay got killed, and, you know, we see her reaction at her daughter's wedding, like how she's having such a strong time with it. But, you know, that happened behind the scenes. She didn't have to see it. And then from one moment to the other, she sees Cassian kill 2 people, and she's just like, I don't know if I can do this. Until the rebellion.
Yep.
So Sarah, she's finally seeing the violence, and it's just 2 people that she's seeing, not, you know. So
you know what? You know what I think
to know about your thoughts on this.
Yeah. So you know what I think? You know what I think? This all means something. What this means to me is, if this speech was meant to be rushed, it was meant to be cut off. It was meant to be this stressful moment of, you know, okay, yes, I think that the impact of the speech on the parallels to our current situations, it hit a lot of people, and so I can see why it was impactful for them.
Yeah.
I think, hear me out.
That's why we have you.
We're listening.
This is just their way of just telling everybody to go watch the best animated Star Wars show. Go watch Rebels, because that speech is
better.
Like, if you exactly go watch Secret Cargo? Go watch it. You will not regret it, because it just makes that speech, you know, that much better, honestly.
It does.
I mean, and maybe it was purposeful. Like they're like, we're not going to surpass that speech, because they kept saying in the episode, it's like, oh, we want her coming in because she's making a speech. It's like, listen to that speech. Right, maybe they didn't want to like take from it. Yeah.
Right, because they did touch on it. I think it was like 2 or 3 times Draven was like, they want her to make a speech. They want her to make a speech. And so it's like, okay, we're going to get these people curious. So go watch Rebels. It's like, so, you know, maybe,
and then
maybe
watch
it
the
was
speech
on
and
purpose.
then watch the entire show.
And then watch the entire show because it's the best. It's the best.
Yeah, and I have to give credit there to Tony Gilroy that for a man who came into Rogue One and Andor season 1 not being, you know, knowledgeable of Star Wars lore and not quote unquote caring about, you know, the you know, story and canon of it all, to be as respectful and delicate, right, in terms of like how he's weaving everything into what is the continuity that we're, you know, familiar with, but without having it be, you know, ham-fisted either. Because he's not like, oh, the Ghost Crew is gonna go get them. Go watch now on Disney Plus. I feel like it's it's really good because it's like, if you know, you know. If you don't know, you're also fine. It's not, you know, you know, it's not a sledgehammer. It's a, you know, it's a little mallet, and I appreciate that from Tony.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a, you know, it's a nitpick. I understand. I'm just like really.
I can see where you're coming from, though.
Like,
I see where you're coming from.
We've seen better. Yeah. We've seen better than this. But I don't know.
Well, and also especially after the end of episode 8 was the one that had me sobbing. Like when Deer is like making the call for help, like we are dying. There's the murder really of the Gorman people, and you see like Cassian really crying. Acting, like probably being brought back to Ferrix and everything that he's been through, and that whole sequence there at the end of episode 8 was like so impactful. I mean, I feel like somebody should have recorded that and then just, you know, broadcast that, the actual call for help from the Gors.
Sometimes I just feel I feel heartless when I hear you and see other people online that are like literally having outward emotions to these scenes, and it's like, am I dead inside that I just don't emote? Am I like, are my tear ducts just not functioning? Do I need therapy? Probably yes. But you know,
I was totally crying. I was just definitely crying.
Oh yeah, I was crying.
There's nothing happening here. Great acting, but nothing. I don't know. I'll promise I'll go to therapy one of these days. But there is one thing that I really appreciated about the interaction between Bale and Mom before she goes in to say the speech, and I only caught this on the rewatch, was, you know, they have a little exchange between them that's a callback to Marva and Cassian in season 1. And it's when, you know, when Cassian goes to Marva to get her and to try to escape Ferrix, and she tells him, you know, you can't stay and I can't go. You know, that whole sequence. The fact that Fiona Shaw didn't get nominated for awards for that scene alone is just criminal. But anyway, that is called back here, right? When Mon is asking Bale to also leave with her, and then he says that he's just like, I can't go and you can't stay, and it's like, oh God, well done. I think it was Dan Gilroy that wrote this trilogy of episodes, because just, you know, the whole callbacks to season 1 to Rogue One.
It's so good.
There's a lot of parallels. There's so many parallels. Yeah,
amazing. I sometimes sneak into Twitter. I'm bad, and I sneak into Twitter, even though I'm, you know, a Blue Sky apologist these days. And I've seen a lot of the people do a lot of their posting about like all the mirrors between Andor season 2 and then Rogue One, and I'm just like, damn, there's still good people left on Twitter. Just come over to Blue Sky. But I didn't want to wrap up this conversation without talking about an extremely important character, and I think it's a character that I don't want to talk too much about because I think it's more important for everyone else here to talk about, and that's Bix and the handling of her character. It was interesting because I saw people theorizing about like, oh, Bix is gonna overdose on this arc, and I was like, are you watching the same show I'm watching? Didn't she just get catharsis in the last episode by confronting her trauma and killing Dr. Gorst, and now she kicked that? Like, are we watching the same show? But anyway, that aside, we got an interesting twist to Bix's story in terms of like how her character is developing, and it's not being killed, thankfully, but it's a interesting exit, not necessarily from the show. I don't know about that, but at least from the rebellion for now. So I want to hand it off to you guys because I would much prefer you guys react to Bix than just me as a man come here and say like, yeah, Bix this and that. So I'm gonna hand it off.
Oh man. Bix, I think so. I am a like I'm certified lover girl. Like I love love. I love like romance in Star Wars. I love Bix and Cassian. I really do enjoy every second that we get of them together.
Yeah.
And I was really struggling with how like the implications of what happened with Dr. Gorse was going to play out. Like I thought like something was going to happen, like Lonnie was going to get found out, Luthen was going to get tracked to Luthen, and somehow it was going to come back to Bix, and Bix was going to, that was going to be her demise, was the thing that set her free, was going to be her downfall. And I was so scared of how that was going to play out. And when the arc begins, episode 7, and we see Bix on Yavin, and she just looks, I can't describe it, but it almost like she looks happier, she looks more at peace, she looks different. Like she just seemed different. And I knew the moment that I saw her like that at the beginning of 7, I was like, maybe this is not gonna, maybe there is some hope here. And
maybe it's not gonna be tragic.
Yeah, I was like, maybe she is, well, I mean, maybe, but I mean, but getting towards the end, I think the way that her pseudo exit, for now, or whatever we want to call that, I think it it was handled. I like how it was handled.
Right.
I like that she kind of took this power back for herself, and she made that decision. She said, I'm doing this for the rebellion. I'm doing this for you. I think that it was tragically beautiful.
Yes.
And I was sobbing like a little baby. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. Why is she doing this to him? And she's leaving him. But I think that whole moment with the Force healer and that realization that she had, I don't know if that was like some, because I like that they, I know a lot of people were upset because they brought in the Force and they brought that in, but I feel like the Force needs to play a role in any Star Wars, because it brings that mysticism of Star Wars back into the franchise and into what we're watching. And I think that it needs to be a constant, presence, because that's what Star Wars is. It's dictated by the Force. The Force has such a power over everything that happens. And her having this realization of Cassian's, like, whatever he's meant to do, he's a messenger, he has, he's gathering things. Her realization there, I was like, at that point I was like, oh my god, I was like, is she actually gonna leave? Like, I was like, what is gonna happen here? I didn't really understand. And then her kind of saying, I'm doing this for the rebellion. I'm doing this not only for me or you, I'm doing it for the humankind. I'm doing it for everyone. I'm doing it for the galaxy. And in her doing that, we see how it plays out. And she plays such a major role in how the rest of the events play out in Cassian's life. And it's like, where, if she had not left, if she had stayed, where would we be? I mean, we all know that Cassian's weakness is Bix. It's always been Bix. It will, I mean, and that was what I was so fearful of, is that it was going to just shatter him if she died.
Right.
But I feel like this is shattering him in a different way.
Oh yeah.
That is going to drive him to his actions in the next year and into Rogue One. And I'm scared to see what he's going to be like in this final arc. I don't know how that's going to play out.
Yeah.
Obviously, but I think that the way that she left, like I said, tragically beautiful, had me in a puddle of tears. And I just, I love her. Bix, the woman that you are. Like, I just, I love
amazing.
it.
She's amazing.
And I also feel like there was a lot of parallels between, I know we were talking about parallels between Marva and Cassian and Bail and Mon, but there's also that parallel between Cassian and Marva and Cassian and Bix. And I feel like that played out really well as well. And so that's a long-winded answer from me.
Yeah. So last arc, I was speculating that she was going to die. Because, you know, that bitter version of Cassian that we get in Rogue One, and, you know, Bix is not around. So I was like, she's going to die. And that's going to be the thing that finally drives him into like the shell of the man that we meet in Rogue One. So we knew something tragic was going to happen there. But then to see them again, being so happy together. I mean, the scenes with them are so beautiful sometimes without them having to say anything. And so when you start doing, you know, the Force healer, that Cassian is, you know, very reticent to have anything to do with the Force. And I didn't like how Luthen mentioned that, you know, when he says that everything's by choice, he's like, is it? Because you've been around every time I've needed you. So the insinuation that it's all because of the Force, I don't like that. I think Force is the guiding presence, but it's still his choices that do it.
Exactly.
So that's why I'm not opposed to them bringing the Force, because you were saying it's Star Wars. The Force is a part of everything that happens. I don't like saying that because the Force is around, there's no choice. I don't like that. So I don't think that's such, and that's personified by Bix being the one who chooses. And her saying, I agree with you, Andor, it is about choice, but your choice can't be about me.
Right.
So that was another speech that was beautiful, you know, and it's just her talking to a screen, and then you kind of see it when she's doing it, and then his reaction to watching it, which was like so sad to watch. And the fact that she knows not only that he's important because he has proven himself to be important, but the fact that she also doesn't want to leave the fight. Like, she doesn't just say it's for the rebellion. She's saying that she wants to win. And she had said that to him the arc before, where it's like, if it's war, and I believe it when you say that it is, fine, but we have to win. It's the only reason that we make it worth it is if we actually win. And at this point that they're in Yavin, you know, it is becoming an actual war. And I think she realized that for him to do the best that he can be, she needs to remove herself from the situation. And maybe she needs to remove herself from him as well, because I think she has her own goals. And I think we are going to see her in this last arc doing something for the rebellion elsewhere, because she brings her own set of assets and her own power to the rebellion. So I don't think we've done seeing her. As soon as he came back and he's telling her that, you know, it's about them and the most important thing is them, and she doesn't answer, I was like, okay, this is where the tragedy begins. This is going to be terrible. I was like, just the whole time he's speaking, I'm like, no.
I could feel it ripping me in half. I'm like, no.
I know.
Say something.
But I didn't know how that was going to turn out. And then when he wakes up the next morning and she's not there, I was like, oh no, she left him.
Yep.
No, she left him. That's going to destroy him in so many different levels. And then the fact that she admits that, you know, if she was brave, she would have done it to his face. But even though she's doing something really brave, she's not completely brave, because she cannot break his heart. And she admits that if he asked her to stay, she probably would have. So I thought it was heartbreaking. And then the part that broke me the most is when she says, like, after we're done, after we win, we will be able to do all of these things together. I will find you. We will live the life that we want. And deep inside, it's like, no, you won't. He's going to die.
I know. The emotions where she was like, when this is over, when we win, I'll find you. I'm like, no, you won't.
And I just kept seeing that final scene of Rogue One being like, nope.
Nope. I mean, you could survive, you know. You never know.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
The force works in mysterious ways. No,
it's all luck, you know. I've always spent it all, right? Is that what he said? Oh man.
Oh my god. No, but yeah, that entire scene, I was like, why do you hurt me so? Star Wars. Why? Why?
Sometimes we need a little pain and heart.
So that's my take. But it was incredibly acted by Adria. It's like understated, straight to the heart, amazing. And Bix, like you said, it not only does she just looked healthier the entire arc. Like the last one for me was so hard to watch because she looked so skinny and the dark circles and like, and then in this one she's like full of life, and I feel like even like her freckles are like more highlighted and she looks gorgeous, and you know, I don't know, I thought it was really great. It was a great arc for Bix all around, I think, this entire season. So I'm really happy with that, even though it makes me cry and it's tragic. And, you know, I'm going to be traumatized until we get to the next arc, which I'll be traumatized some more. So whatever.
Yep.
But it's good. It's great storytelling and fantastic writing. So.
Well, thank you for sharing your perspectives, because I think it's much more valuable to hear what you have to say about her character than it would be to hear my perspective. So I definitely appreciate that. But there was some, everyone was intuiting a little bit about where character journeys might go, and I'd be remiss if we didn't do some responsible speculation. Obviously, I cannot participate for better or worse, probably for better, right? Because I actually can't speculate. So where do you think the final arc is going to take us? I mean, obviously don't say Rogue One, because that's obvious. But what do we expect to see in the final arc? Because I think this is it's kind of like a wild card arc, since like all the things that we know were going to happen. So Sarah, let's start with you. What are you thinking we're going to get in this final trilogy?
I really have no idea. I'm excited to see more K2 and Cassian. I'm so excited we got to see the birth of K2. It was fantastic, even though I was watching it through tears. But I'm very excited to see that dynamic and where they are. I'm so freaking happy that Melshi is back. So I hope that we see more of that. But obviously plot armor. So I don't really know what's gonna happen with that. But I really like, Nani, I like what you said about like seeing Bix maybe like off on a side quest. That would be really, really cool. I would love that. I don't know if we're going to get that, but I would actually love that. So that we don't actually have to not see her anymore. I would just love to see more Bix. I have not great feelings about Luthen. I don't know. I feel like Luthen his days are numbered. I just don't know what that looks like. I'm really curious. I think it's going to be really interesting to see Mon kind of get comfortable in this new environment that she's in. I think that her and adjusting to being full blown in the rebellion, I'm really excited to see that. I just don't know what they're going to do to us. I don't know. I'm scared.
And there's 3 of them. I'm terrified.
I know.
It's like, it's not a season finale, it's a series finale. 3 episodes. Like so much can happen.
Or nothing could happen. Maybe it's just a musical number.
I hate you a little bit right now. A little bit.
The middle episode is just a musical, you know?
Oh my God. Could you imagine?
Maybe. I don't know. I was gonna say an answer, but actually I don't know. Nani, do you have any speculative thoughts before we wrap up?
So aside from the big side quest that I'm really hoping for, definitely K2SO. I need to know what's happening with B2 Emo. Like
oh my God, I know.
I need to know what's happening. I want to see.
I think Bix is gonna go get him. I think Bix is gonna go find B2 Emo. I want, not to interrupt you or anything, but I hope at least at the end, I feel like it's gonna be awful. And like, it's going to be the worst thing I've ever watched in my life. But I hope that we get to see Bix at least find out what happened to Cassian, and like, that's going to look like. I hope there's something like to wrap that up at least. But I don't know how I feel about watching it.
Like maybe she's in the room where my Mothma's doing the whole, lots of rebels died to obtain these plans. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be a really beautiful moment for her to see that her actions led to what happened in Rogue One.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about watching that. I think it's going to destroy me in more than ways than one, but I think it would be kind of cool, a cool way to end her story. But I don't know.
Yeah, that I think it would be really cathartic, but again, very traumatizing. I already know I'm going to be traumatized by the next arc, so whatever. But yeah, and I really do want to see what happens to Dedra, like what the fallout of everything that happened in Gorman is going to be for her, and what her future looks like. Like you were saying, Luthen, I think Luthen has pretty much run his course, probably. Like, he was never going to be the face of the rebellion. He just was like part of the setup of it and helping everybody get into place. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to some of that. And now we know we're so close to Rogue One. We know that Mon was afraid of Bail, you know, being held as a hostage. So I kind of want to see what happens to Bail in like this part of the history. So, you know, I wouldn't be against a little Leia cameo.
Hey. That would be kind of cool.
So I don't know.
Yeah. What kind of like do we think that we're gonna get any cameos? That's the real question. Is like, oh man, the possibilities.
Because we're so close.
Yeah. Because doesn't it doesn't the finale. Doesn't it back right up to the beginning of Rogue One?
Yeah, I think they were saying that it goes right into Rogue One, but I don't know. And we're one and BBY one. So next one. So we'll see.
I think at the very least we'll get a Jin name drop. You know, I think at the very, very least they'll name drop her. I would hope.
Maybe.
I mean, the whole point of the Gorman massacre is to get the mineral so they can build a Death Star. So
Alkite, from the beneath the planet's surface.
Yeah.
Which we know that they succeeded in, for better or worse. And it looks like bad luck Gorman for worse. But you know, we can be speculating here all night long, but thankfully we only need to suffer for less than a week now to get the last and final arc of Andor, the complete series now. So not that much longer. It's gone by so fast. I wish we had done the 10 weeks of Andor like we did for season 1, but here we are. We're doing 4, but what a 4 it has. I mean, 3 so far, but what a 4 it will be once it ends. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. This has been such an amazing conversation. But before we wrap up, where can people find you and what are you up to these days?
Yeah, so you can find me on all social media is SarahXCIII, and that's Sarah with an H. Just don't forget the H because that's the best way to spell it. And I'm on Twitch, YouTube, Instagram. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm unfortunately still on X, but you know, it is what it is. But you can find me everywhere. It's SarahXCIII. And what am I up to? I am currently I'm challenging myself to. This is embarrassing. I started Jedi Survivor on release, right? I'm still playing the same playthrough, and it's been 2 years since the game came out. I know.
I hope you're doing it at Grandmaster level.
My community. It's there. Listen, life happened. I took breaks from the game. So right now I am currently challenging myself to actually finish the game. Shout out to my community, where they're called the Spicy Squad. They're amazing, and they have really pushed me to finish the game and also trolled me. So that's what we're doing over on Twitch and YouTube right now. And then I'm playing through a couple other games, like side games and everything. But Jedi Survivor, I'm full steam ahead with Jedi Survivor.
You being a completionist and trying to get 100% or?
Oh yeah, 100%. I play on PlayStation, so I'm going for the platinum. I probably we're about I think we're like halfway, 3/4 of the way through the story right now, so it's fun.
I need to see how much I get. I'm not a completionist, so I didn't get a platinum trophy for Fallen Order, so I'm not even sure how far I was on Survivor, but we'll see. We're rooting for you to finish at least.
I appreciate it. I usually stream on Twitch like every weekend. I'm usually live either Saturdays or Sundays, and YouTube videos go up on Fridays, Saturdays, whenever I can upload them. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's where you can find me.
Awesome. And we'll put links for all of that down in the description below, so that it's easier for people to find you. So thanks again for joining us, and first time here over at Triad, but hopefully not the last.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sarah with an H. for joining us today. It was such a great conversation. It was such an emotional arc. I can't wait for the next one. I know I'm going to be destroyed. At least we only have a week to wait. So please like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you've thought about Andor so far, how you felt about these first 3 arcs, how you feel about Andor in general, Star Wars, Rogue One, anything you would like. And until next time, we will cry with you.
Not me until
May
I
the
go to
Force
therapy.
be with you.